When I was 23, I finally finished teacher training college. I got good grades in all my courses, and I thought I knew everything. But I soon realized that the cultural diversity of my students was something that teacher training college hadn't prepared me to deal with. I had 33 students from 13 different countries, and in some cases there was a language barrier as well as a cultural barrier. So as usual, I relied on information from the internet to help me, and I learned a lot about cultural diversity. That's what today's podcast is about: how to teach culturally diverse groups of students. At first, before my students learned anything from me, I had to do some learning from them. Instead of finding out about the students' backgrounds on my own, I asked about their lives in front of the whole class. Why? Well, by asking questions about my students in front of the class, I was achieving two things. First, finding out about them benefited all the students there. Second, by asking them about their backgrounds publicly, it showed the students it was okay to be interested in diversity, not suspicious of it. The most important thing was to learn the pronunciation of their names. One student's name was Dragon, which I initially pronounced as Dragon, and then apologized for my mistake. And we all learned that the name Dragon in Serbo-Croatian comes from the word drag, which means deer. Nothing to do with dragons at all. Next, I had to make sure I paid attention to festivals that students from different backgrounds celebrate. Aliyah and her community celebrate the Muslim festival of Eid. This year it was celebrated at the beginning of June, so in May we had a class to learn all about Eid, and Aliyah was the teacher. The idea was for students to see that everyone has something to teach others, and we can all learn something from other people. Using these ideas doesn't mean that my classroom is perfect, or that there are no more issues to deal with, but it means that everyone respects each other more. That's the kind of thing they should teach us at Teacher Training College.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to our weekly podcast, Educate Us. With us today is psychologist Anne Riesling, who's here to talk about mnemonics and how they help us with learning. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Riesling.
Please call me Anne, and thank you for having me.
Anne, could you just briefly explain to our listeners what a mnemonic is?
Yes, of course. Well, the word mnemonic comes from the Greek word for memory. So a mnemonic is anything that helps our own memory. We often use them to remember something that's hard to remember, but useful for us to know. We commonly use phrases or rhymes in mathematics so that we can remember how to do things with numbers.
There's one that I remember from grade school. 8 times 8 fell on the floor, pick it up, and it's 64.
Ah, that's very smart. You see how helpful that is? You've remembered that saying for years, but could you have remembered the answer without it? Possibly not, because calculating numbers is not very interesting. But the cute little phrase, well, we tend to remember these things. Sort of like a lyric to a pop song that stays in your head.
There was another one I used to use, Holmes. Each letter stands for one of the Great Lakes in the United States. Lake Huron, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Superior. I would never remember that otherwise.
Well, there are many common phrases that are useful, and I think it's valuable for students to learn as many of them as they come across. Apart from mnemonics, where the first letter of the word stands for something, we can also learn rhyme mnemonics. How can we remember how to spell the word receive, for example? There's an I and an E in the word. Does the I come first, or is it the E that comes first?
Oh, that's an easy one. The mnemonic is I before E except after C.
Or when sounding like A in neighbor and way.
Oh, yes, oops, I forgot the rest of it.
That's okay. Yes, even with mnemonics, we still have to remember them correctly. But even if we don't always know them perfectly, they are useful because they can help us remember the information. In addition, I believe it's important for educators to encourage students to come up with mnemonics on their own, since what one student remembers easily might not be easy for another.
How would they do that?
Well, Another type of mnemonic is a connection mnemonic, which is making connections between words to help us remember their meanings. Take latitude and longitude, for example. Lines of latitude on the Earth are parallel with the equator, and lines of longitude go from north to south. You could say longitude makes you think of things that are tall and long, so that helps me remember which is which.
Ah, that's very clever.
Having a variety of mnemonics can be helpful for students to try so that they can see for themselves what works best. To conclude, remembering things for study purposes is important, but it's also a good way for us to exercise our minds. The more we use our memory, the better it works.
Great. Well, I'm sure you've provided some information today that our listeners will definitely remember. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Cinema Club, where we're talking about women's characters in movies. This is something we don't think about when we stream a movie to relax after work. But there is a feeling that female characters in movies aren't as diverse as men's are. Diana Coppola is in the studio with us now. Diana is a movie critic for the Sunset News. Diana, there have been more and more advances in movie making, such as special effects and CGI, so doesn't this work with characters too? Aren't we all equal now?
Well, no. Women's characters tend to fall into predictable categories.
Categories? Like heroes and villains?
Not exactly. Let's look first of all at the long-suffering wife. She's a character who is basically there to support her husband. The male character, the main character, usually has a very difficult job, and she is always just waiting for him to come home. We almost always see her cooking or talking to her adventurous husband on the phone, and the director follows her with a handheld camera to look realistic. In fact, some critics call this character wife on the phone.
Okay, so who's next?
Next is the cold career woman. She's the type of character who is obsessed with getting a great job and succeeding in life, despite men trying to stop her. In the end, she gets her dream job, but her happiness is not complete until she meets the man of her dreams and marries him.
Oh, I see. And then?
Then we have the beautiful Avenger. She's a character with a very difficult past, and she needs to get revenge for what happened. She normally has a child, too. This character's role is to fight for her rights and argue strongly with everyone, often accompanied by a powerful soundtrack. At the end of the movie, she is usually alone and happy. But in the end, she is a stereotype because she is basically defined by the fact that she is a woman.
So, do you think these stereotypical female roles will ever change?
Not until we change the way we write screenplays. The more we define characters by their gender, the less we relate to them. We don't love Harry Potter from the movie franchise because he is a boy. We love him for his character and his psychological journey.
Well, thank you, Diana. That's very interesting. Now I'd like to move on to talk about women in cinematography.
It was only a joke at first, but only days after posting a video of herself laughing loudly in a mask that looked like a Star Wars character, life for Candace Payne suddenly got serious. Seriously rich, that is. She was also suddenly known as Chewbacca Mom. She got gifts from toy stores around the U.S., $400,000 in scholarship money from the University of Florida, requests for interviews on TV, and so many views on Facebook that she got to meet Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Candace Payne says that she is a happy Chewbacca, which is not as surprising as you might have thought since her life has changed dramatically. Obviously, if you're in a video with over 140 million views after only a few days, it also makes you famous. But Candace is one of the lucky ones. Why? Well, fame can have its drawbacks too. You see, fame may be every young person's dream, but it suddenly exposes you and your family and friends to a huge amount of attention. And maybe you don't want everyone paying attention to everything you do or everything you have done. According to Donna Rockwell, of the Michigan School of Professional Psychology and David C. Giles of the University of Winchester in their study, Being a Celebrity, a Phenomenology of Fame, from 2009, there are typically 4 psychological stages of fame. First, there is the love-hate stage. At this stage, people feel like everybody is paying attention to them, which they love. But they also feel a bit guilty about it too. This stage doesn't last very long. Quite quickly, many people who have found sudden fame, like Candace did, get to the addiction stage. They not only love the fame, but they cannot imagine life without it. What used to be a new and exciting feeling soon becomes normal, and when they don't get attention, they can't wait to get it again. Then there is the acceptance stage. This might sound good, but you are accepting the bad as well as the good. The bad is, for example, the feeling that you don't trust people anymore. Why does this person want to become friends with me? Is a common question that people ask. They soon realize that people love them not for who they are, but for what they do. This is called character splitting, where people have a different personality in public than they do in private. The 4th stage is adaptation. In this situation, people learn how to deal with fame. Even if someone calls their name in the street, they just ignore it. This can have some negative consequences, such as wanting to stay at home and not go out. So, while it might seem like a dream to some people, consider all of this next time you see a celebrity in the street. Why do you want to take a selfie with them? Because of who they really are, or who you think they are? Maybe just keep walking and let them get on with their day.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lucia Wright, and I came here today to tell you a story. In 1987, in a city called Rosario in Argentina, a steel worker named Jorge and a cleaner named Celia had a baby boy. This boy was always very small for his age, but at 5, his father allowed him to play for a local soccer club. Unfortunately, because of his size, he was bullied by the other children. Still, this boy continued to play soccer, but he wasn't growing the way his teammates were growing, and when he was 11 years old, he was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency. His parents were having problems with money, and this came at a bad time in Argentina, when the economy collapsed. His parents couldn't pay for his treatment. The family thought they had been saved when a very big local club told the boy they wanted him to play for them, but they couldn't pay for his treatment. Then came an offer from a Barcelona soccer club. They told the boy and his family that they would pay for his treatment, but only if he moved to Spain. So the boy left his family behind and went to live in Barcelona. Shortly afterward, he became the youngest player ever to score a goal in the Spanish National League. Not everyone applauded his success. Some people in Argentina began to say he wasn't really Argentinian because he lived in Spain. Now, however, he is considered one of the greatest soccer players, if not the greatest soccer player in history. His resilience made this happen. What was this boy's name? Lionel Messi. What can we learn from this story? That resilience is a key skill in life. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from negative life events. This all sounds great, right? But how do we do it? Well, Deborah Serrani, an American psychologist, describes a 4-stage approach to building resilience. The first is stating the facts. That is, state the problematic situation and look at it realistically. Don't minimize it, but don't imagine the bad things that might happen either. We need to focus on the reality of our situation. Next comes placing blame where it belongs. This simply means that we should not try to constantly blame ourselves or others for our problems. If you break your cell phone, for example, you just need to accept that this happens and decide what to do. After this comes reframing. At this stage, we need to look at the positives of the situation. For example, at least the cell phone wasn't stolen, At least no one has stolen your identity. Or at least you weren't robbed. The last step is giving yourself time. Time to adjust to what has happened. You shouldn't hurry yourself to deal with things immediately. Many people think that strength means acting decisively in the moment. But actually, allowing yourself to deal with a situation in your own time is real strength. As the Greek philosopher Socrates said, know yourself. Give yourself the time that you need. Don't let anyone rush you. Okay, so none of this will turn us into the next Messi, but his example and these simple ideas can guide us in building a resilience that can help us face everyday challenges.
Hey, Anita. What are you reading about?
Hey, Sam. Well, since we have a test in science class next week, I was reading an article about the Earth's magnetic field on Cosmos magazine's website. It's by Vishnu Varma. I found it interesting, although science isn't really my favorite subject. It's strange when you think about it, but the Earth is like a giant magnet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to read that article too, although I haven't gotten around to it yet. I find scientific subjects to be very fascinating, though. What's the title of the article again?
It's What Creates Earth's Magnetic Field, and I can tell you what I've learned so far, so when you read it, it'll be easier to understand.
Oh, that would be great! I'll even take some notes. So let's see. How exactly does the Earth's magnetic field work?
Well, the Earth's center, or core, is made of iron. Iron is magnetic, as we all know. But when iron is very hot, it stops being magnetic. At the same time, the Earth turns, but its center is not solid. Because of the high temperatures, it is, in fact, a liquid iron. This iron core is able to turn faster than the Earth. So, because of this, the center can generate a magnetic field despite the high temperatures.
Ah, I see. And what does the magnetic field do for the planet and for life on Earth? I'm pretty sure it acts as a form of protection.
Exactly. The magnetic field creates a barrier or shield, and this shield keeps out harmful radiation and stops it from reaching the surface of the Earth. You know, radiation is very bad for humans to absorb. It causes atoms to, fall apart, I guess is the best way to put it.
I know. Radiation comes from extremely heavy metals and substances, not ones we use every day. I know it's used to generate electricity in power plants, but generally speaking, it's a horrible thing.
That's right. Another thing the magnetic field does is stop solar winds from reaching our atmosphere. These solar winds blow at around 3 million kilometers per hour.
Oh, wow, that's incredibly fast. It seems like that would blow everything away.
I know, right? Well, the magnetic field pushes the powerful solar winds outward, so they don't have a chance of blowing away our atmosphere.
So, if I understand correctly, without the Earth's magnetic field, radiation from space would reach the surface of the Earth and kill us. Also, the solar winds from the sun would destroy our atmosphere and we wouldn't be able to breathe. I guess the magnetic field is an extremely important feature of Earth.
Yes, well, it's one of the reasons that there isn't any life on Mars. Its iron core isn't liquid, and Mars doesn't turn fast enough to generate a very strong magnetic field. Because of that, Mars has no atmosphere, and the surface has dangerous levels of radiation.
Looks like that planet needs a lot of work done to it before we can live there.
Definitely.
Paradise. I'm sure that even the word gives you mental images of perfect white sand beaches, coconut trees, and a turquoise sea. In his 1996 novel, The Beach, Alex Garland describes just such a place somewhere in Thailand. And just like many things in life that are perfect, it soon gets ruined. People say that art imitates life. In his case, it was the other way around. In the year 2000, the director Danny Boyle shot the world-famous movie based on the book On a Beach in Thailand. Soon after the release of the movie, over 200 boats carrying over 5,000 tourists were arriving at the perfect, family-friendly beach every day. In the short term, this meant money for the tourist industry in Thailand. A lot of money. Over $12 million a year. In the long term, this meant something far more negative. Due to pollution from trash, boats, and sunscreen, more than 80% of the coral around the bay has been destroyed. The once beautiful beach has since been closed, but it took a long time for Thailand's government to agree to do this, mainly because of the money that tourism brought in. In my opinion, we can learn many things from the story of this Thai beach. Governments need to have a less short-sighted and sustainable plan for the local ecology. We need open-minded, decision-making individuals in power who can see that there can be a negative impact, as well as financial benefits, of tourism. So what can individuals do? Well, first, flying into the country and taking boat trips aren't going to help the environment at all, so take trains rather than planes. It's not all about the environment, though. When traveling to developing countries, many tourists think they are doing the right thing when supporting a local economy by buying local products. But this is only true if two conditions are met. First, that those products are not wildlife products. Buying anything like seashells is simply creating the need for the host country to be constantly robbed of its wildlife. And second, check that the product really is local. In Cancun, Mexico, for example, it's not unusual to see genuine Mexican sombreros for sale that are made in China and are therefore cheaper. That's not going to help the local sombrero makers at all. So, if we all do what we can, hopefully governments will follow our lead and we can all enjoy paradise before it's closed like the Thai beach.
Hi there! In this week's Marketing News podcast, we're doing something different. We usually look at effective marketing strategies, but today we're going to look at why marketing strategies affect us so much. Because from your local restaurant to a global corporation, marketing affects us in ways we don't always notice. So to start off, let's look at the most basic thing about a brand. Close your eyes and think of a brand, any brand. Now, what color do you associate with that brand? If it's red, like Coca-Cola, the brand wants you, the end user, to associate it with excitement and adventure. If it's yellow, like McDonald's, the brand wants you to associate them with optimism and friendliness. It's an inviting place that makes you want to come in and be a part of it. There are many other ways that marketers try to boost sales. Think of your favorite restaurant. Restaurants can try to influence the amount of money we tip. How? Well, they know that if they bring 2 mints with the bill, you might increase your tip by up to 20%. This is a marketing strategy called reciprocity. You do something for me, and I do something for you. Okay, so that's your local restaurant. But big international brands have the budget to do something called product placement. Have you ever seen a TV series where there are a lot of people using the same brand of laptop? That's product placement. Marketers know that when people watch a TV series, they like to be associated with that series. Why? Well, in a way it gives them an identity. So, if you use the same laptop as the ones the characters use in your favorite TV series, it makes you feel like part of their gang. The same is true of celebrity endorsement. If Pogba is using a certain brand of soccer cleats in an advertisement, it's clear why some people might want to wear the same cleats. After all, that becomes the brand's USP, or unique selling point. It's like saying, there are many other soccer cleats, but these cleats are worn by Pogba. It's the point that makes the brand different from all its competitors. So what's the conclusion of all this? That when a brand or company is doing its sales forecast for the year, they take all of this into account, whether we notice it or not. Think about this before you choose one brand over another. Is it really because you think the product is better? Or are they just better at marketing?
This debate is about whether the number of tourists visiting the Kingdom of Bhutan in Southeast Asia should be reduced. Sophia's group believes that tourism should be restricted, and Chloe's group disagrees. Let's start with those in favor of restrictions. Sophia?
Thank you. Bhutan is being slowly destroyed by the constant daily flow of tourists. Bhutan has to deal with ecological problems because of tourism, but also cultural problems as well. Tourism to Bhutan's sensitive cultural community has tripled in only 6 years. If that tourism continues to increase, we will see a continued destruction of the local environment and the local culture and economy. Why? Because farmlands are now being abandoned as everyone tries to get more money by serving the tourist industry. We are seeing the collapse of an entire culture, but we can stop it by restricting the number of tourists who are allowed to enter Bhutan.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, Chloe, please tell us why you believe that tourism in Bhutan should not be restricted.
If Bhutan received over $85 million in 2018, I think we can say that it is a country that is getting rich from tourism. While tourists may cause some damage to the area, that money is essential. If tourism is restricted, we will see a huge loss of financial income for the country.
Chloe, I completely respect your position, and we are happy to agree with you that tourism is very important for Bhutan. But my group has spent months researching this topic. According to experts on the environment and culture of the region, we can assure you all that the negative impacts of tourism are of more concern than the financial benefits.
Thank you for agreeing, Sophia. And I agree with you that money is not the most important thing in a community. But we have done a survey of students at the university and found that over 65% say that tourism is the best way to get to know another culture. People want to know about other cultures and want to visit countries like Bhutan, and we should not restrict the flow of tourists.
But if you and your team are supporting the concept of cultural awareness, you must also agree that to protect cultures, we must support them. And allowing a farming community to be abandoned so farmers can pursue money from tourism is not the way to do that.
Yes, but your point of view would just make everyone poor, and no one wants that. People will leave Bhutan to find jobs in other places, and there will be no way of having any tourism in Bhutan. Your argument is extremely short-sighted.
We believe that your team and my team should work together so that we can make our suggestions for tourist restrictions work for Bhutan's future. You, for example, are an excellent geography student. We would be very happy for you to help us find a long-term solution to the negative impact of rising tourism in Bhutan.
Well, everyone, I think it's time for us to vote on whether we agree that tourism in Bhutan should be reduced.
Welcome to our program, The Future of Work. We've got workplace analyst Gloria Perez with us today to talk about video conferencing. Thanks for joining us, Gloria.
Thanks for having me.
You work with companies in order to advise them on video conferencing and if it's right for them. Can you briefly talk about some of the advantages?
I'd be happy to. Well, the most obvious advantage with video conferences is the fact that you can conduct meetings with people from anywhere in the world in a sort of face-to-face environment. While it's not exactly like having an in-house meeting, it's still more productive than, say, a conference call. With video conferencing, you can see each other's faces and you can communicate through facial expressions instead of just tone of voice.
There must be a benefit in terms of traveling to each other's offices as well.
Yes, in that sense, there is a double benefit. For one thing, you don't have to waste time traveling to the other person's office. It's convenient even if your workplaces are just across town from each other. But it's especially beneficial if we're talking about distances of thousands of kilometers, as is the case with many of my UK clients.
And that traveling also costs money.
Exactly. Which brings me to the other part of this benefit: business expenses. A company can save a lot of money on travel, thousands of dollars in fact, if they don't physically have to visit each other's meeting rooms. For young startups, it's a great way to save some money, and for larger companies, it frees up money for other investments, or even for wage increases.
That must make employees very happy. What other benefits can you tell us about?
Well, with video conferencing, you also have the ability to share documents with each other, and you can review those documents during your call. And with extra software programs, everyone on the call can even work together on a project at the same time.
So we've talked about the benefits, which make video conferencing quite attractive. Does the use of this technology have many drawbacks?
Well, companies do ask me about that before they commit to the service. They're clearly interested, but they question its usefulness. I mentioned how video conferencing allows users to read each other's facial expressions. One thing that's still missing is body language. Unless you are truly face-to-face with one another, you won't be able to read those visual clues, such as how a person is sitting or standing, things that can tell you if someone is interested or not interested. Still, I think video conferencing offers a lot in the way of nonverbal communication.
Do you find that people are comfortable with it?
It's something that takes a bit of getting used to. I find that some employees and managers take it up right away and enjoy its usefulness. Others are so used to meeting people in person that it takes them longer to adjust. And then there are those that really love having visitors in the office. So even though they might use the service from time to time, they still rely heavily on regular face-to-face meetings.
I imagine it's more useful for some companies than for others, right?
My belief is that any company can take advantage of the service, from advertising and construction to the fashion industry and even health services. That said, there are some things that it can't replace, so I stress that it's a tool that a company can use along with conference calls, in-house meetings, and written communication, and one that will save them time and money if used properly.
Great! Well, you've said many good things about it, so I think it seems like a very useful option. Thanks for describing it in detail for our listeners. Hi, folks, and welcome to our podcast, Humans in the Future. I'm Luis Gomez, and with me is Carmen Anderson. Today, we're exploring a variety of interesting new wearable devices that are either in development or have just been released, and we'll be talking about the ones that really caught our attention.
Yes, I have to say I was quite impressed with what the future holds in wearable tech devices.
Exactly. There were so many to choose from, so we tried to narrow it down to 4 favorites. Which one interested you the most, Carmen?
Well, it was a device called Nixie, which is a camera drone that you wear around your wrist. It looks like a watch, right? It's very thin and somewhat fashionable. I might have designed its look a little differently because it's not the most stylish watch I've seen. But apparently you can release the watch and it turns into a sort of mini helicopter, and you can use a phone app to direct it to fly over your head and take a selfie. Now, I'm not sure how useful that is, but it certainly sounds cool.
Yes, well, I imagine it would have a great application for people working in architecture who would like to see how things look on the ground from way up high. And this device would make that convenient.
That's a good observation.
And if it's affordable, I imagine a lot of people would buy one for fun.
So which one was your favorite, Luis?
Well, my favorite was actually one that was not exactly suited for humans. It's a wearable device for dogs. I mean, it's something that dog lovers would appreciate for sure, which is maybe why I liked it so much, because I have 2 dogs. It's called Whistle, and it attaches to a dog collar, and it does the obvious thing, which is track your dog's location. So with an app on your phone, you can always know where your dog is. But it tells you much more than location. It also monitors your dog's health. It can even tell you how many calories your dog has burned, which is an indication of how much exercise your dog is getting.
Oh, wow! So it's a benefit for both dogs and the people that care for them. Do they have one for cats? And what happens if the collar gets wet or dirty? Could that affect the device?
Well, I didn't see one for cats, and I'm not sure what would happen if the collar got wet, but it would be interesting to find out. What other devices interested you, Carmen?
Okay, this one doesn't really have any useful application at all as far as I can tell, but I just found it to be really, really cool. It's a type of shoe for which you can change the style with an app on your phone.
Really? That sounds great. I think it's useful having a pair of shoes that go with different outfits, isn't it?
I think so, yes.
But what about shoe size? How does the app know which one is the right one for you?
Well, they're called Volvery Timeless Shoes. And at the moment, the shoes only come in black and white, but they use something called e-ink, which appears in panels on the sides of the shoes. So you can change the shoes from black to white and back again. And I think you can make different patterns of black and white on the shoes. I'm not sure about the shoe size, but I guess you pick it when you get the app.
Very impressive. Well, for the last one on our list, I decided to go with a sports device. It's called a Viper Pod, and it attaches to a wearable strap that you place around your shoulders and back, and the device rests in the middle of your back. It tells you a huge number of things about how you're performing. It can tell you how fast you're running and how fast your heart is beating. It can tell you how you step on the field, how powerful you are at doing certain actions, if you're putting too much stress on your body. Well, I could go on. It has a lot of functions.
That sounds very useful for athletes.
Yes, in fact, soccer players such as Lionel Messi have used it on the field.
Well, it sounds like the future of wearable devices is interesting indeed. I can't wait to see what developers come up with next. Dis. Lit. Salty. Confused? You're not the only one. Slang and buzzwords can be very puzzling. I'm Dinah Lawrence, and today I have the linguist Frank Pinkerton in the studio with me, and we're talking about why slang and buzzwords are so important to society. So, Frank, salty? That means something that tastes of salt, doesn't it?
Oh, you're so out of date, Dinah.
I thought I might be.
Okay, so the dictionary definition of salty is something that tastes of salt. But these days, it's also slang for feeling upset or angry about a small issue.
So I can sound more teen then by using the word salty?
Well, you have to be careful. You could say, Jake is kind of salty right now because his mom won't let him go out tonight, to mean that Jake's upset or bitter about the situation. But you see, it's not just about knowing what slang words mean.
Why not? I mean, aren't terms like face palm and emoji just words that people need to understand?
You'd have to go back to the original meaning of the word slang to see why it's not that simple. Slang was originally a Northern English expression that meant territory. So it's really about who can use the words. It identifies you with a particular community.
Okay, but everyone uses words like photobomb, don't they?
Well, yes, and that's now almost as common as the word selfie. But although the first selfie was taken in 1839 by an American photographer, the word didn't really appear until the early 2000s. And the verb photobomb has been around at least since the Beatles. They used to do it all the time.
So it's not so much the concept that's new as it is the words?
Right. I mean, think about how many times you've pocket dialed someone by mistake. It must have happened for years before someone gave it a name.
Okay, so why do we so often associate this language with teenagers? We usually see it as bad language, don't we?
We might, but it's actually an essential part of people's development. As adolescents grow up, they cultivate a language to connect as a group. It's a way of learning how they can become independent from adults and use expressions that are based on their values, not the values of older generations. And going back to the origins of the word slang, as the lexicographer Ben Zimmer says, people create their own kind of territory through language. And this is exactly what teens do.
Well, thank you, Frank. That's a very interesting way to...
So, Kat, it's great that we've been given the money we needed to create our new clothing line for travelers. But there are a lot of things we need to work out. We should have a meeting with the other staff to make a plan. But there are so many issues that I'm not sure where to start. Shall we make a list?
Good idea, Alex. Well, one of the most important things is going to be deciding what types of clothes travelers are going to like.
Okay, so let's think about that. There are so many types and styles of clothes, like jackets, boots, hats, gloves. I mean, it really depends on where they'll be going. So let's consider climates first of all.
Yes, I totally agree. I'll write that down. Next, we need to think about costs. How much would the clothes cost to produce? I suppose that either depends on what we're going to make or how many of each item we're going to produce.
Yes, you're right. I think the most important thing would be the amount we need to make. So we should have a look at that next in our budget. I'll add that to the list for the meeting. Okay, and what about materials? Are we going to use cotton, wool, polyester, or something else?
Well, that's going to depend on the climate. But more importantly, it will depend on the types of activities that people will be doing. For example, wool is great for keeping warm by a campfire in Alaska, but not so good for climbing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll need to discuss the types of activities that our customers might be doing when they're traveling too. Oh, and another thing will be where we put our factory.
Right, because we might need a place that's close to the downtown area, so it's easy for us to deliver to stores, but not somewhere where it will cost a lot of money to build.
Yes, and we also need a good supply of water for the factory, but we can't have it close to any natural water like a lake or a river. We don't want people to be worried about pollution.
Good point. So building the factory just out of town might be a good idea. I'll add that to the list as well. Okay, so I think we're all set for our meeting with the others. Do you know the slogan for Nike, the sportswear brand? Yes, that's right. It's just do it. But try saying that to someone who procrastinates. It just doesn't work. It's like saying to someone who's stressed, hey, just relax. Procrastinators put off tasks until the last minute. They might be looking at Instagram or just playing with a pencil, but the last thing they are doing is what they should be doing. But it's not because procrastinators enjoy procrastinating. In fact, even though we all procrastinate, psychologists have found that people who procrastinate also tend to get lower grades, which also stresses them out, meaning they can't focus when they finally get around to working. It's a vicious circle. Fortunately, this isn't the end of the story. According to experts, anyone is able to overcome procrastination by using 5 simple time management techniques. All of these techniques are highly useful, and I'll start by telling you my favorite, and that is to remember that you can't manage time. Time passes whether we like it or not, so the only thing we can manage is how we use time. So start by writing a list. It might sound simple, but it's also very effective. Why? Because as soon as you do this, you are already eliminating any non-essential tasks from your day. The second thing is probably a procrastinator's worst enemy, distractions. These can be anything from social media to checking email. It's a good idea to log out of your Facebook and Instagram accounts when you are working. If not, you'll find yourself needing to catch up on your work or even do it over because you've lost track of where you were. Step 3 is all about your hotspots. Now, hotspots aren't about finding the warmest place in your home. Hotspots are the times of day when you work best. For example, I like to work early in the morning rather than in the afternoon. Try and make sure you're ready to start work at your hotspot time. Step 4 is take more regular breaks. That might sound strange when you are supposed to be working, but taking breaks can make you more productive. If you tell yourself you have to finish part of your work in an hour, you will stick with it until you finish. Also, having more breaks refreshes you. And step 5 is evaluate. At least once every 2 weeks, have a look at the way you are managing your time. See if you need to adjust anything that isn't working for you. Why? You don't need to always have just one plan of action. Your time management plan should develop as your work develops. So, in the future, hopefully no one will need to say, just do it to you, because you'll be doing it already.